what you will be doing in this house. Lord, I ask that you will be blessed today. Your word says where 2 or 3 are gathered together for my sake, there I am in the midst of them. And so I thank you for you are here. You are glorious. In the name of Yeshua. Set again after a long time ago where the mics and the stands were different, but bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh my soul, worship his holy name, sing like never before. Oh my soul, worship your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh answered this one last week, huh? Yeah. Although I need to take my list of words to her so she can correct the bridge part, because it drives me crazy. You know, when you get songs from different sources, sometimes the orders of things are a little different, even the orders of the words. Lost or saved, find their way at the sound of your great name. All condemned, feel no shame at the sound of your great name. Every fear has no place at the sound of your great name. The enemy, he has to leave at the sound of your great name. Yeshua, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. All the world will praise your great name. All the weak find their strength at the sound of your great name. Hungry souls receive grace at the sound of your great name. The fatherless find their rest at the sound of your great name. The sick are healed, and the dead are raised at the sound of your great name. Yeshua, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. All the world will praise your great name. Redeemer, Redeemer, my healer, Lord Almighty, my Savior, defender, you are my King. Redeemer, my healer, Lord Almighty, my Savior, defender, you are my King. Yeshua, Yeshua, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. All the world will praise your great name. Yeshua, Yeshua, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. All the world will praise your great name. Your great name. Your great name. You are holy. God of Israel, you are holy, holy. There is no one else like you. You are holy, holy. There is no one else like you. Choose this day. Choose this day whom you will serve. 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 But as for me and my house, we will serve you, Lord. We will serve you, Lord. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. As for me and my house, we will serve you, Lord, lifting holy hands in worship. We will not bow down to the gods of men. We will worship the God of Israel. You are holy. You are holy, holy. There is no one else like you. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Ata, Ikamoka, Adonai. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Ata, Ikamoka, Adonai. Choose this day. Choose this day whom you will serve. 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 But as for me and my house, we will serve you, Lord. We'll serve you, Lord. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. We will not bow. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. We will not bow. We will not bow to the gods of men. We will not bow to the gods of men. We'll worship the God of Israel. As for me and my house, we will serve you, Lord, lifting holy hands in worship. We will not bow down to the gods of men. We will worship the God of Israel. 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 Abba Father, we come to this house to worship you, the God of Israel, the God who has called us apart, the God who sets us apart for himself, for his kingdom. I ask that you would bless us today as we gather together, that you will be honored, that you will be glorified, that you will receive the blessing as we obey you. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord and our Savior. Amen and amen. Joy, would you come and lead the shofar? Who blows the shofar? Lishmoach Kol Shofar. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has instructed us to hear the voice of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chiyot l'goyim v'natan lanu Yeshua HaMashiach for ha'olam. It's not picking up. Yeah, I think the mics got messed with somehow. Probably me. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with your commandments, and has commanded us to be a light unto the nations, and has given us Yeshua, the Messiah, the light of the world. Father, I want to thank you for today, and I ask that you would be with Chris today as she is traveling. as you have sent her on a mission, because, Lord, when her work sends her out, we believe and we know that you are the one who orchestrates it, because you are in control of it. And so we ask that you would guard her, protect her today, that you would let it go smoothly. Father, that you would give her opportunity to honor you. Lord, that you will be glorified. Father, I ask that we would become aware of all that you are doing in our midst, all that you are doing. And I ask that you would help us know where you have called us to be and what you have called us to do. And I pray it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord and our Savior. Amen. go ahead and do the readings. Our reading today is out of Korach, Numbers chapter 16, beginning in verse 1. And the numbers are a little bit confusing in the way that they're marked over there, and that's because if you have a complete Jewish Bible, or if you are reading out of a Tanach, your numbering system is going to be different. I think the scribe's donkey stumbled in different places. You know that story, right? How chapters and numbers and the chapters and verses got decided with books we already had, but to divide the chapters and books, there's an old silly story about the scribe's riding along on his horse, and every time that the horse, was a little bit off, every time he felt the jolt of the step, he put a verse, and if the horse stumbled, he made it a new chapter. It's a silly story. The verses and the numbering systems have been different and are a little different, but the words are basically the same. So we're going to go with Parsha Korach, which means Korah. It's the name of a man. And it begins in Numbers chapter 16, verse 1. And I'm going to be reading to, it'd be verse 40 if I was in in a Christian Bible. So, but it's verse 8 of chapter 17 in a standard Bible. So anyway, the first reading out of this section of Korach. And we're basically going to read the whole section of Korach. It's not that long. Now Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi, along with Datan and Avram, the sons of Eliav and On, the son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, took men and rebelled against Moshe. Siding with them were 250 men of Israel's leaders of the community. 250 men of Israel, leaders of the community, key members of the council, men of reputation. They assembled themselves against Moshe and Aaron and said to them, "You take too much on yourselves. After all, the entire community is holy, every one of them, and Adonai is among them. So why do you lift yourselves up above Adonai's assembly?" When Moshe heard this, he fell on his face. Then he said to Korach and his whole group, "In the morning, Adonai will show who are his, and who is the holy person. He will allow to approach him. Yes, he will bring whomever he chooses near to himself. Do this. Take censers, Korach and all of your group, put fire in them, put incense in them before Adonai tomorrow, and the one whom Adonai chooses will be the one who is holy. It is you, sons of Levi, who are taking too much on yourselves." Then Moshe said to Korach, "Listen, sons of Levi, is it for you a mere trifle that the God of Israel has separated you from the community of Israel to bring you close to himself, so that you can do the work in the tabernacle of Adonai and stand before the community serving them? He has brought you close, and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you. Now you want the office of Cohen too? That's why you and your group have gathered together against Adonai. After all, what is Aaron that you complain against him?" And Moshe sent to Dathan and Avram, the sons of Eliav, and they replied, "We won't come up. Is it such a mere trifle bringing us up from the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the desert? Now you arrogate yourself to the role of a dictator over us? You haven't at all brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey. You have not put us in possession of fields and vineyards. Do you think you can gouge out the men's eyes and blind them? We won't come up." And Moshe was very angry. And he said to Adonai, "Don't accept their grain offering. I have not taken one donkey from them. I've done nothing wrong to any of them." Moshe said to Korach, "You and your group be there before Adonai tomorrow. You, they, and Aaron, and each of you take his fire pit and put incense in it. Every one of you bring before Adonai his fire pan. 250 fire pans, you two and Aaron, and each one with his fire pan." Each man took his fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and stood at the entrance to the tent of meeting with Moshe and Aaron. Korach assembled all the group who were there against them at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole assembly. Adonai said to Moshe and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this assembly. I'm going to destroy them right now." And they fell on their faces and said, "O God, God of the spirits of humankind, if one person sins, are you going to be angry with the entire assembly?" Adonai answered Moshe, "Tell the assembly then to move away from the homes of Korach, Datan, and Aviram." Moshe got up, went to Datan and Aviram, and the leaders of Israel followed him. And there he said to the assembly, "Leave the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you might be swept away in all of their sin." So they moved away from all around the area where Korach, Datan, and Aviram lived. Then Datan and Aviram came out and stood at the entrance to their tents with their wives, their sons, and the little ones. And Moshe said, "Here is how you will know that Adonai has sent me to do all these things, that I have not done them out of my own ambition. If these men die a natural death like other people, only sharing the fate that is common to all humanity, then Adonai has not sent me. But if Adonai does something new, if the ground opens up and swallows them with everything they own, and they go down alive to Sheol, then you will understand that these men have had contempt for Adonai." The moment he finished speaking, the ground under them split apart. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households. All the people who sided with Korach and everything they owned, and everything they owned went down alive into Sheol, and the earth closed over them, and their existence in the community ceased. All Israel around them fled at their shrieks and their shouting. "The earth might swallow us too." And the fire came out from Adonai and destroyed the 250 men who had offered the incense. And Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron the Cohen, to remove the fire pans from the fire and scatter the smoldering coals at a distance, for they have become holy. Also the fire pans of these men whose sin cost them their lives have become holy, because they were offered before Adonai. Therefore have them hammered into plates to cover the altar. And this will be a sign for the people of Israel. Eleazar the Cohen took the brass fire pans, which the men who had been burned to death had offered, and they hammered them into a covering for the altar, to remind the people of Israel that an ordinary person, not descended from Aaron, is not to approach and burn incense before Adonai, if he wants to avoid the fate of Korach and his group, as Adonai had said to him through Moshe. Craig is going to do the next part. It will be Numbers chapter 16, verse 41, through to Numbers 18, verse 7.
Okay. Murmuring and plague.
Should say the next day the whole assembly assembled.
But on the next day all the congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You are the ones who have caused the death of the Lord's people." It came about, however, when the congregation had assembled against Moses and Aaron, that they turned toward the tent of meeting, and behold, the cloud covering it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from among this congregation, that I may consume them instantly." Then they fell on their faces. Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer, and put it in the fire from the altar, and lay incense on it. Then bring it quickly to the congregation, and make atonement for them. For wrath has gone forth from the Lord, the plague has begun." Then Aaron took it as Moses had spoken, and ran into the midst of the assembly, for behold, the plague had begun among the people. So he put on the incense and made atonement for the people. He took his stand between the dead and the living, so that the plague was checked. But those who died by the plague were 14,700, besides those who died on account of Korah. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the doorway of the tent of meeting, for the plague had been checked. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and get from them a rod for each of the fathers' households, 12 rods from all their leaders according to their fathers' households. You shall write each name on his rod, and write Aaron's name on the rod of Levi, for there is one rod for the head of each of their fathers' households. You shall then deposit them in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony, where I meet with you. It will come about that the rod of the man whom I choose will sprout. Thus I will lessen from upon myself the grumblings of the sons of Israel, who are grumbling against you. Moses therefore spoke to the sons of Israel and all their leaders, gave him a rod apiece, for each leader according to their fathers' households, 12 rods, and the rod of Aaron among their rods. So Moses deposited the rods before the Lord in the tent of the testimony. Now on the next day Moses went into the tent of the testimony, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds, and produced blossoms, and it bore ripe almonds. Moses then brought out all the rods from the presence of the Lord to all the sons of Israel, and they looked, and each man took his rod. But the Lord said to Moses, Put back the rod of Aaron before the testimony, to be kept as a sign against the rebels, that you may put an end to their grumblings against me, so that they will not die. Thus Moses did, just as the Lord had commanded him, so he did. Then the sons of Israel spoke to Moses, saying, Behold, we perish, we are dying, we are all dying. Everyone who comes near to the tabernacle of the Lord must die. Are we to perish completely? So the Lord said to Aaron, You and your sons and your father's household with you shall bear the guilt in connection with the sanctuary, and you and your sons with you shall bear the guilt in connection with your priesthood. But bring with you also your brothers, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may be joined with you and serve you, while you and your sons with you are before the tent of the testimony. And they shall thus attend to your obligation, and the obligation of all the tent, but they shall not come near to the furnishings of the sanctuary and the altar, or both they and you will die. They shall be joined with you and attend to the obligations of the tent of meeting, for all the service of the tent, but an outsider may not come near you. So you shall attend to the obligations of the sanctuary and the obligations of the altar, so that there will no longer be wrath on the sons of Israel. Behold, I myself have taken your fellow Levites from among the sons of Israel. They are a gift to you, dedicated to the Lord, to perform the service for the tent of meeting. But you and your sons with you shall attend to your priesthood for everything concerning the altar and inside the veil, and you are to perform service. I am giving you the priesthood as a bestowed service, but the outsider who comes near shall be put to death.
Joe's going to pick up where he left off and read end of Numbers 18 to the end of this reading.
And the Lord spake unto Aaron, Behold, I also have given thee the charge of mine heap offerings of all the hallowed things of the children of Israel. Unto thee have I given them by reason of the anointing, and to thy sons by an ordinance forever. This shall be thine of the most holy things, reserved from the fire, every oblation of theirs, every meat offering of theirs, and every sin offering of theirs, and every trespass offering of theirs, which they shall render unto me, shall be most holy for thee and for thy sons. In the most holy place shalt thou eat it, every male shall eat it, it shall be holy unto thee. And this is thine, the heave offerings of their gift, with all the wave offerings of the children of Israel. I have given them unto thee and to thy sons, and to thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. Every one that is clean in thy house shall eat of it. All of the best of the oil, and all the best of the wine, and of the wheat, the first fruits of them, which they shall offer unto the Lord, them have I given thee. And whatsoever is first ripe in the land, which they shall bring unto the Lord, shall be thine. Every one that is clean in thine house shall eat of it. Everything devoted in Israel shall be thine. Everything that openeth the matrix in all flesh, which they bring unto the Lord, whether it be of men or beasts, shall be thine. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man shalt thou surely redeem, and the firstling of unclean beasts shalt thou redeem. And those that are to be redeemed from a month old shalt thou redeem, according to thine estimation, for the money of 5 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, which is 20 gerahs. But the firstling of a cow, or the firstling of a sheep, or the firstling of a goat, thou shalt not redeem. They are holy. Thou shalt sprinkle their blood upon the altar, and shalt burn their fat for an offering made by fire, for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And the flesh of them shall be thine, as the wave breast and as the right shoulder are thine. All the heave offerings of the holy things which the children of Israel offer unto the Lord have I given thee, and thy sons and thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. It is a covenant of salt, forever unto the Lord, unto thee, and to thy seed with thee. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, Thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part, and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the 10th in Israel for an inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance, but the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as an heave offering unto the Lord, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, Among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Thus speak unto the Levites, and say unto them, When ye take of the children of Israel the tithes, which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then ye shall offer up a heave offering of it for the Lord, even 1/10 part of the tithe. And this is your heave offering, shall be reckoned unto you, as though it were the corn of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress. Thus ye also shall offer an heave offering unto the Lord of all your tithes, which ye receive of the children of Israel, and ye shall give thereof the Lord's heave offering to Aaron the priest. Out of all your gifts ye shall offer every heave offering of the Lord, of all the best thereof, even the hallowed part thereof out of it. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, When ye have heaved the best thereof from it, then it shall be counted unto the Levites as the increase of the threshing floor, and as the increase of the winepress. And ye shall eat it in every place, ye and your households, for it is your reward for your service in the tabernacle of the congregation. And ye shall bear no sin by reason of it. And ye have heaved from it the best of it, neither shall ye pollute the holy things of the children of Israel, lest ye die.
Janie got called away, so I'll go ahead and read the portion out of Samuel. It's 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 14. I'm going to read to the end of chapter 12. Then Shemuel said to the people, Come, let's go to Gilgal and inaugurate the king there. So all the people went to Gilgal, and there in Gilgal, before Adonai, they made Shaul king. They presented sacrifices as peace offerings before Adonai there, and there Shaul and all the people of Israel celebrated with great joy. Samuel said to all of Israel, Here I have done everything you asked me to do. I have made a king over you. There is the king walking ahead of you, but I am old and gray-headed, and these are my sons with you, and I have walked at your head from when I was a boy until today. So here I am, and now is the time to witness against me before Adonai and before his anointed king. Does any of you think I have taken your ox or donkey, defrauded or oppressed you, or accepted a bribe to deprive you of justice? Tell me, and I will restore it to you." And they answered, "You have not defrauded or oppressed us, and you have accepted nothing from anyone." He said, "Adonai is witness against you, and his anointed king is witness against you today, that you have found nothing in my hands." And they replied, "He is witness." Samuel said to the people, "It was Adonai who appointed Moshe and Aaron, and who brought your ancestors up from the land of Egypt. Now hold still, because I am going to enter into judgment with you before Adonai regarding all the righteous acts of Adonai that he did for you and your ancestors. After Yaakov had entered Egypt, your ancestors cried out to Adonai, and Adonai sent Moshe and Aaron, who brought your ancestors out of Egypt and had them live here in this place. But they forgot Adonai their God, so he handed them over to Sisera, commander of the army at Hatzor, and to the Philistines, and to the king of Moab, and they fought against him. And they cried to Adonai and said, "We sinned by abandoning Adonai and serving the Baalim and the Ashtaroth. But now if you will rescue us from the power of our enemies, we will serve you." So Adonai sent Yerubbabel, Bedan, Yakaf, and Shamuel, rescued you from the power of your enemies on every side, and you have lived securely. When you saw that Neshach, the king of the people of Ammon, was attacking you, you said to me, "No, we want a king now to rule over us," when Adonai your God was your king. Now, here's the king you've chosen, the one you asked for. See, Adonai has put a king before you. If you will fear Adonai and serve him, obey what he says, and not rebel against Adonai's orders, if both you and the king ruling you remain followers of Adonai your God, then things will go well for you. But if you refuse to obey what Adonai says, and you rebel against Adonai's orders, then Adonai will oppress both you and your leaders. Now therefore, hold still, and see the great deed that Adonai will perform before your very eyes. Now it is wheat harvest time, isn't it? I'm going to call on Adonai to send thunder and rain. Then you will understand and see how wicked from Adonai's viewpoint the thing is that you have done in asking for a king. And Samuel called out to Adonai, and Adonai sent thunder and rain that day. And all the people became very fearful of Adonai and of Samuel. And all the people said to Samuel, "Pray to Adonai your God for your servants that we do not die, because to all our other sins now we have added this evil as well, asking for a king over us." And Samuel answered the people, "Don't be afraid. You have indeed done evil. Yet now do not turn away from following Adonai, but serve Adonai with your heart. Don't turn to the side, because then you would go after useless things that can neither help nor rescue. They are futile. For the sake of his great reputation, Adonai will not abandon his people, because it has pleased Adonai to make you a people for himself. As for me, far be it from me to sin against Adonai by ceasing to pray for you. Rather, I will continue instructing you in the good and right way. Only fear Adonai. Serve him faithfully with all of your heart, for think what great things he has done for you. However, if you insist on doing wicked things, you will be swept away, both you and your king." Bob is going to come and read out of our apostolic writing portion today, which is in John chapter 19, verse 1 through 17.
Pilate then took Jesus and scourged him. And the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and put a purple robe on him. And they began to come up to him and say, "Hail, King of the Jews," and to give him slaps in the face. Pilate came out again and said to them, "Behold, I am bringing him out to you, so that you may know that I find no guilt in him. Jesus then came out, wearing the crown of thorns and a purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." So when the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, saying, "Crucify, crucify." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and by that law he ought to die, because he made himself out to be the Son of God." Therefore, when Pilate heard this statement, he was even more afraid, and he entered into the praetorium again and said to Jesus, where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. So Pilate said to him, "You do not speak to me. Do you not know that I have authority to release you, and I have authority to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no authority over me unless it had been given to you from above. For this reason, he who delivers me to you has the greater sin." As a result of this, Pilate made efforts to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, "If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar. Everyone who makes himself out to be a king opposes Caesar." Therefore, when Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat at the place called the Pavement, but in Hebrew, Gabbatha. And now it was the day of preparation for the Passover. It was about the 6th hour, and he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." So they cried out, "Away with him, away with him, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priest answered, "We have no king but Caesar." So he then handed him over to be crucified. They took Jesus, therefore, and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which is it called in Hebrew Golgotha.
You are God of the heavens and God of the earth. You are God of our Savior's virgin birth. You were God on the cross and God over hell. You were God before man and God when he fell. Sometimes I think it's easy for us to forget that God is God, that circumstances, happenstance, events that come our way, nothing is outside of God's control. Nothing is outside of God's hand. It's kind of a bizarre circumstance, a bizarre place that we find ourselves at times because bad things do happen to good people. But only if you see it from the perspective that things are bad. See, the perspective is really that God is good. And that God, who is a good God, is in control. So if something is happening that seems to be bad, there's a place that we need to take it and get to where we submit it to God and we say, okay, God, what's in this? Yeshua stood before Pilate and didn't answer Pilate when Pilate was asking him, who are you anyway? He says, I don't understand this, Pilate said. He took him back out in front of the people even, and he said, who is this? You take him and do what you need to do with him, because I don't get it. And when Jesus was brought back in to the courtroom with Pilate, he says, you're not even speaking to me? You're not even, don't you know that I could set you free or I could have you killed? And Jesus said, you have no authority over me for what God allows. No authority over me but what God allows. Jesus is going to be crucified. He sees that coming. He knows that's coming. He could be arguing with Pilate. He could be defending himself, but he did not defend himself. You don't have any authority, Pilate. You just think you do. The authority is God. The authority is, was, and always will be with God. When the people cried out to Samuel and said, we want a king, because they were being oppressed, and they figured, well, all our neighbors have kings, and that's why they have armies, and that's why they can defend themselves, and that's why they're coming against us, because we don't have a king. This is why. They figured it out. They thought they figured out why the enemy was coming against them, and they blamed it on the fact that they were different from everybody around them, and they didn't have a king. So give us the kings that can defend us. Saul said, you have a king. Our king is God. If we would submit to him, this wouldn't be going on. And when Samuel went before God and he said, what do I do now? God said, give him a king. Give him a king. It's what they want. Give him a king. So Samuel anointed Saul, and Saul became king. And Samuel brought him before the people, and he said, here's your king. Now who are you going to blame? I mean, really, there's this place where he says, okay, Here's the king. Now, you and the king both need to follow God. All need to follow God. And it's almost as if he's saying, okay, so you are blaming God. You're saying we don't have protection because we don't have a king. So here's your king. Now what are you going to blame? And what was really going on? What was really going on is they were walking without faith. They were not walking in faith in the Almighty God. They were looking at people and leaders, and they were looking at the human side of it. And Samuel warns them. He says, do not go serving after other gods. Stay serving after God. Stay serving after our God. He's not going to abandon you because of his reputation. But if you do not fear the Lord, if you insist on doing wicked things, doing things your way instead of God's way, you will be swept away. You and your king. It's not the king who defends us. It's not the king that chooses whether we live or die. That's God. That's God. If we will follow God, we won't be swept away. You know, I've read the story of Korach so many times, and I've tried to understand it. I've tried very hard to understand it from different perspectives, okay? I've heard the argument and the position that, well, Korach is, he's a Levite, which he is. And Korach, and I love this understanding of Korach. There's this place where Korach himself, he and his sons, their job, their role in the tabernacle, their role in the transport is they were to carry the things from the inner court. It was the sons of Korach and Korach himself who got to carry the Ark of the Covenant. After the sons of Aaron had properly covered it. There's even a midrash that compares the word used for cover, which literally means to swallow up. The sons of Aaron were to go in first, and they were to cover the things of the holiest place, the Holy of Holies. They were to cover the ark. They were to cover the incense. They were to cover that lampstand. They were to cover. And the word cover in Hebrew means the same thing as to swallow up, to wrap up, to swallow, to engulf. They were to engulf the holy things from the tabernacle in blue cloth, so that the sons of Korah could carry them and live, because these are holy things. And in fact, the sons of Aaron were supposed to direct the sons of Korah specifically as to what to lift up, when to lift it up, how to. They were supposed to be protected by the sons of Aaron. And perhaps Korah looked at that and went, why do you boss us around all the time? Why do you tell us how it's supposed to be done? Hey, can't you trust us? What, you can't tell me once and have me remember how to do it? You have to be there, you have to guard it, you have to protect it, you have to... And I got to tell you, there are times as a leader that I understand both sides of this, because I've been in that place where I've been under leadership that micromanages, and it gets to feeling pretty awful, doesn't it? Micromanagement is hard. At the same time, there are things that need to be done certain ways because it makes it work better. And there's reasons for it. And in this case, it saved their lives. It was to save their lives. It was so that they didn't die improperly touching and holding something that is of God. But Korach was like, quit micromanaging me. Only that's not what he said, is it? He said, well, and he complained, and by the way, there's this whole thing about not just Korach, but Datan and Aviram, and they were sons of Reuben. So we notice the Kohathites, Korach, and his group. You see in the tabernacle picture there, where the tabernacle is center, and right below it we have Kohath. That's the sons of Korah. That's Korach's group. Right next to him is who? Reuben. They're next door neighbors when they camped. So Korach was complaining to his neighbor. You know, I've been watching stuff in the tabernacle. This thing that Moshe is doing, that Aaron's doing, how come they get to be in charge? How come they get to tell us how to do things? How come they're the ones leading? How come I don't get to? I'm just as gifted. Not only did they do that, but they looked at Reuben's sons and they said, how come you're not leading? Because, isn't Reuben the firstborn? You know, there's something that happens when we start complaining against somebody that's in leadership. And we complain to someone else, and we plant seeds of distrust, and we ourselves become and it snowballs. The church has been really, really strong about fighting the spirit of Jezebel. I wonder how come we're not fighting the spirit of Korah. Because honestly, I see the work of Korah more than I see the spirit of Jezebel sometimes. We've had the spirit of Jezebel in this house. I know we have. We've dealt with people who have that spirit on them, who want to control the head. But we've also had people who've come in who decide they want to be the head, right? And you find that in every congregation. Every congregation. In fact, if you read what Korach said, he came out and he said basically, you think you're too important. We're all holy. We're all holy. The whole assembly, all of the congregation. Why, every man is created equal. We heard that somewhere before? It's a very American concept, isn't it? We're all equal. There's a place that's truth, but there's also a place where God has anointed people into certain positions, and he sets them there. And if we argue against that, we find ourselves in trouble. We know that wasn't exactly what Korach was saying behind the scenes, because Moshe looked at him, he says, is it enough for you that God has given you a very special place? You get to carry the Holy of Holies. Isn't that enough? Isn't that good enough? What? You want to be priests too? Korach didn't say it that way. He just said we're all even. We're all equal. We should all be. Nobody should be the boss. But actually what Korach was saying is I should be the priest too. I should be a boss. Korach was a leader in Israel. He was a respected man. These sons of Reuben were respected men. We know that because when God judged them, Israel got mad at Moses. They blamed Moses. It's really easy for us to look at someone who is doing what God has called them to do and criticize it. And we need to be very careful about that. Because we don't want to fall into the sin of Korach. We don't want to fall into the sin of Reuben. his sons, where they were usurping authority. At the same time, as leaders, we have to be very, very careful that we're not the ones doing it. The same word that is used, by the way, about wrapping the holy things is the same word that is used in the Hebrew when it says the earth swallowed them up. It's the same word in the Hebrew. So God said, you think you're holy? Yes, you are, and I will cover you too. There's a connection there. There's connections between Korach's name and the pulling of the hair on the head in grief. There's an understanding that some of this may have come out of the grief and the frustration and the anger that they felt because they've realized that God is serious when he says, you're not going into the land now. The accusation against Moses was real in the sense that Moses took them out of Egypt with the promise to bring them into the land of Israel, but now they don't get to go into the promised land. That's a real concern. It's a real anger. It's a real frustration. But they took it out in the wrong way and in the wrong place. They should have fallen on their faces before God and just stayed there. Instead, they mourned, they grieved, they got upset. They tried to go up and take again the land. They tried to go ahead and do it without God's hand. They got smashed. They're upset because they realize the judgment of God is real. But they don't walk in repentance. Instead, they walk in anger and grief. There's nothing wrong with grief. Grief is real. There's nothing wrong with anger if it gets directed appropriately. The New Testament says, be angry, but don't sin in your anger. There's an acknowledgement we're going to get angry. We're going to have a hard time. There are things that are going to happen that we don't like. It's not fun. But we have to come back to this place that says, God, you're God. You are God. You choose. You organize it. You set it up. And you handle this. We can't blame people. We can't blame others. We can't go against the Lord's anointed or those who God has put in leadership and complain against them. And we shouldn't be going to other people and saying, oh, well, you should be this or you should be that. We take it before the Lord. I love part of what it says at the very end of this, in the very end of our Torah portion. It says, tell the priests this, when you set aside from the best part. It says in verse 32, moreover, because you will have set it apart from the best part, you will not be committing sin because of it. You are not to profane the holy things of the people of Israel, or you will die. He looks at Aaron's sons and he says, look, you don't belittle the people and what they bring in either. The people were not to belittle, were not to criticize, were not to come against Aaron, but it is also this place where he's telling them, don't you come against what the people bring. When the people offer something, it is holy. When they bring it to you, it is holy. Respect it. Respect, honor the holy things. Don't profane what the people bring. We get upset with leaders. Leaders get upset with followers. And the reality is we're all supposed to be working together. We have to respect each other. Everyone has a place. Everyone is to do what they are called to do. What they are called to do. We can't say, oh, but I wish I could do this and I want to do that. If that's the case, take it to the Lord and let God raise you into the position, because He will. He will and He can. When we submit. Samuel, he told the people flat out, watch out. Watch out for yourselves. But then he said, I have to keep praying for you. Even though it feels like you rejected me, I have to keep praying for you. I cannot not do that. It would be a sin as a leader to not pray for the people. That's what Samuel says. When God brought judgment against the people for accusing Aaron and Moses of being the ones who swallowed up and killed the leadership, right? Now, and by the way, I always thought and I understood that when God opened up the earth, it was the wives and the children and everybody fell in. But the scripture actually says the men. It does not specify the children. It doesn't even specify their wives. It says the men were swallowed up. The men who had come against Moses, they were swallowed up. How do we know there are children of Korach that survived? Because we have psalms written by them. The sons of Korach become those who worship with a beauty and intensity in music. So God redeems this family. So don't think it's all over just because it was over for Korach himself. His grandchildren and great-grandchildren were raised up as leadership. When the people blamed Moses as if Moses could open the earth, and yeah, think about it, as if Moses could open the earth and close it back up over the top of the guys. Excuse me? Moses couldn't do that. And a plague began and broke out among the people. We have Aaron taking the censer, taking the prayers, and running among the people. Aaron runs through, he runs towards the death, and he intercedes. He takes that prayer of intercession over the very people who just accused him of opening up the earth to swallow. So as leaders, we have to pray for those who've come against us. As followers, be very careful before you come against someone. But in all of it, we have to keep coming back to the fact that God is God. God is God. God will do what God needs to do. And in all of that, He will purify us, right? I just keep coming back to that. Yeshua didn't get mad. He just said, God didn't give you any authority, but what God has given you. It's God's authority, not yours, that you're using against me, Pilate. It's not your authority. It's the ones who accuse me falsely. They're the ones that will be judged. Korach was judged. He accused Moses falsely. The men who went with Korach were judged. They accused the leadership falsely. But God is the one who defended them. God is. I've taken a position that I don't defend myself anymore, as much as I can help it. Try humanly. It's not always possible, because humanly we want to, right? But Moses didn't defend himself. He gave it to the Lord. He said, God, Samuel didn't defend himself. He just said, do you have anything against me? To bring it to God. God. Yeshua didn't defend himself. He said, you can't do this except God lets you. God. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. We all do, right? We're human. We all make mistakes. But there's a place where we have to come back and say, okay, God, you have chosen leadership. You prove it. You show it. You determine it. Lord, you are in charge. And you will handle it. And I trust him. And that's kind of been a hard place lately for us. It really has. Been a very hard place lately. But I keep coming back. He's not failed me yet. He's not deserted me yet. God has always come through. He has always shown himself. He will be our defender. He will be the one who shows himself strong. It's up to him. So, Lord, I trust you. Trust you. When people go out and they start their own groups, or when people go out and they murmur against us and join a different group, or when people come in here and tell us everything we're doing wrong, I always take it to the Lord and say, okay, Lord, what? I've only had him tell me to listen a few times to some of it. Some of it has been listen, pay attention. I'm speaking something through this, okay? What are you speaking to me? What needs to be shifted? What needs to be changed? But a lot of times it's just flat out, what have I called you to do? Do it. Okay. What have I called you to do? Do it. What's he called you to do? Do it. And keep doing it. Until he says different, right? Even when people come against it, even when people murmur, even when people complain, even when people say, well, this person should be in charge, or that person should be, Lord, what? Always submitting it to him. Always saying, okay, Lord, what? When he says do something different, we will. But he hasn't. He hasn't. And we do not want to step outside of the direct will of God. Why? Because then the earth will open up and swallow us too, right? I mean, really, that sounds kind of funny and that's kind of harsh, but there's a place, if we want to walk in obedience to God, we've got to walk in obedience to God. And God says we're be faithful in the little things. There aren't that many groups that meet on Shabbat, are there? But I believe God has said Sabbath is Sabbath is Sabbath is Sabbath. I don't think I can't find any place where it's changed. I want to be faithful in that. Because if we're faithful in that, then God will be faithful in the big things. Does that mean we're going to be big and populous? And not necessarily. There's a small remnant in these last days. And are these the last days? Yeah. I don't think we can deny it. I do have a friend on Facebook who's been posting these things about July 17th. I have no idea. I haven't watched any of the videos and I've asked for documentation. Why July 17th? He thinks the rapture is happening on July 17th, by the way. I'm serious. There's a whole group of people that are pushing this right now. But I don't understand it, and I don't get it, other than the fact that they've devised a whole new calendar system, or they've tried to I don't know. I've asked to be given something that shows me why. July 17th. And I don't want to spend 2 hours listening to someone meander, because I started to listen to one of the teachings, and it was like this meandering thing, and I couldn't handle it. But someone was given a prophetic word and the date of July 17th, and they've gone from there. I'm like, Lord, your word says many will say in that day, He's here, 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 he's everywhere. Don't listen to them. If God comes, if Jesus comes on July 17th, I will be as rejoicing as the next. I just don't really expect it. It's not Rosh Hashanah. It's not the fall. We may be off by some days, but the season we know, the season of the trumpet, I don't know. I just know that God says, do what you're supposed to do. Do what you're supposed to do. Do what you do. Do what I've called you to do. Do what you do, right? Do what you do. And don't look around. And don't worry about what other people are doing. And don't be offended if someone tells you how to do something different. Listen, it's okay. They might have something good to tell us. If Korach had listened to the leaders, maybe he wouldn't have died. If these men from the tribe of Reuben had come and reasoned with Moshe, maybe they wouldn't have died. But they said, no, we're not gonna. How dare you? Maybe if we would try to see things from other perspectives. Maybe if we would just be who we're called to be. And let other people do what they are called to do. And walk in the primary commandments of God, which is to love Him and to love our neighbors. We'll get there when Jesus comes. The old joke used to be that it's not going to be a rapture for most Christians. It will be a rupture, as God has to remove them from the things of the earth and rip their hands off of it. I don't believe that. I don't believe in a rapture in the way that I used to. But I do know this. Jesus is coming. He will be king. So I might as well let him be king now in my life. Might as well let him be king now in your life. We might as well submit where he's told us to submit. We might as well do what he's called us to do. Practice it now. Get good at it. The kingdom is coming. I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of it. Abba Father, I want to thank you for your word. Thank you that even in the meandering today, you have a word and you have a message and you have an encouragement for us. And I ask that we would stand stronger in knowing that you are God, that you have chosen your people, that you have chosen us to stand apart from the rest of the community. You have chosen us to show who you are in a different way. I ask for your blessing. I ask for your covering. I ask for your protection. And I ask for your anointing to be poured out over us. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord and our Savior. This is a month. Janie's put some of it up, put it up there, right? This is the month of Reuben. This is a month. The month where the spies were in the land. They came back and they reported. This was a month where a choice had to be made. Are we going to believe God or are we going to believe what we see? Am I going to believe God or not? This is that month. We have begun that month. I find it interesting that the first of Tammuz was July 4th this year. Tammuz is a month named after the Sumerian god. Okay? It's named after an idol. The month is named after an idol to remind us that we do not follow idols. During this month, as we prepare for the month of Av, which is the month of judgment, that we make different choices. Let's choose to see things the way God sees them. So that when Av comes, we choose rightly there. See, one choice leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. We didn't get to do the month gathering this time, but I don't want us to forget and to lose what this season is about. It is a season to see things from God's perspective. To practice doing that. To not look at man's stuff. And honestly, I have so many friends who are so strongly patriotic. And sometimes and I'm not unpatriotic, okay? don't want to give that impression. But sometimes I wonder, who is God? America or God? Honestly. So busy defending and proving our political positions that we can't even love our neighbor? Who is God? God is God. Sometimes that means we have to sacrifice what we think it means to be an American. Are all men created equal? Yes and no. We all submit to God. That's where our equality lies. And that's where our patriotism should lie, as we submit to God, and submit to God, and submit to God.